Alright, I figured since I didn't have enough torn apart already that I'd go ahead and tear apart some more. So I'm going to go ahead and replace my fork seals while this whole front piece is off. So I went ahead and took the fender off the front just to make it a little easier to get the tire off. And it looks like I'm going to have to remove these brake lines back here off the fork tube so I can get these fork seals replaced. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the wheel. I have the new tire in, so I don't know if I'm going to do the tire today or not. I might just do the fork seals, then get back on doing this frame, the front frame piece, and the nose cone and all that fun stuff. So I'm going to first break apart these bolts here that hold the front fork in place, and take the wheel off also, and the brake calipers, so I can get to the get the front tire off and get to the fork seals. So we're gonna move on to that one now. So more stuff to tear apart. Before you take your wheel off, break these 4 bolts loose here, because you'll need the wheel to kind of use as leverage to break these loose. So I've already broken all 4 of them loose, but leave the wheel on there so you can have something to kind of pry against to pop these off, or you're going to kind of have to fight it a little bit. So break these 4 bolts loose first, then take the wheel off. Just so you know, these are 6mm bolts here. Your caliber bolts are 8mm. So I'm going to break those loose next, and then we're going to take the front wheel off. Okay, you do need to break your pinch bolts loose down here at the bottom, and then your axle should be able to spin and start coming out. And so I'm just going to lift up on this a little bit. Taking a look at where the spacers are on this wheel. There we go. There's the spacer, goes on the inside of this wheel. So I'm just going to slide that back on there. Alright, so I've got that broken loose. I should be able to get these brake calipers hopefully out of the way of the tire. Hopefully. Don't know if that wasn't just fell. The speedo gear came out of the way. These calipers come out. These calipers fit so tight in between the wheel. Figure out how to get those out. I hope I don't have to take this whole rotor off. Shouldn't. Alright, I'm going to figure this out. I'll be right back. Okay, I was able to push back and forth on this brake caliper enough to compress the pads to get it to slide out from the wheel. So now the wheel should come off. Head over here out of the way. And now we're going to take this off to get the fork tube off. I'm going to have to disconnect the ABS sensor to get this fork tube off. So a lot of stuff on this bike to take off just to get those forks off. It's not as easy to work on as the 1100R that I had. Didn't have all this stuff on it. It was, the naked bike, and it's pretty easy to work on. So this is a little more difficult, but we'll get it. Alright, I've got the 2 bolts out of here. Now this fork tube should just slide right off. And there we go. Come on out the rest of the way. It's hitting on the lift. Come on, you can do it. Alright, so it's pretty much down. I'm going to have to probably lift the bike up just a little bit to get the fork tube all the way out, because it's hitting against the bottom of the lift. So that's how you get the fork tube out. Okay, what I did to get the dust seal out is I just took a screwdriver and very, very lightly fit it in between here. Don't push down on this fork tube, but I just kind of put my finger in there, just kind of got under the lip a little bit, and then just pried up, and it popped the dust cover off. And then once you get inside, I just very lightly put it in this vise, but you can see that there's a clip. I guess you can see it's lined up. There's a clip. You have to pull that clip out, and then you can get the other seal out. But you have to be very, very careful getting that seal out, that you don't pry against the fork tube and scrape it or break it or, you know, mar it up. So then you have issues getting your new fork tube or fork seal in. Okay, I'm going to try to show you, or at least tell you, what I did to get this seal out and how I found to do it. I take my heat gun. I'll frame this up. I'll take my heat gun, heat up the seal real hot, you know, get it nice and warm, and then put this down. Hang on a second. Okay, like I said, I'll heat the seal up, get it nice and hot, and then I take a piece of wood, like this paint stick that I have here, and I'll put there, and just get a screwdriver and get under the lip of the seal and pry against this piece of wood. And I get a piece of wood big enough where you can hold it with one hand and then put your other hand up there against it as well. So you're prying against that wood, not anything on this fork tube. And that's how I found that they come out pretty easy. So just heat it up pretty good, and then, you know, apply that pressure and, you know, pry it out with a screwdriver. There is another like washer in here, so make sure you don't lose that. If you go to, you know, dump the rest of your shock oil, make sure you don't lose this washer that does sit in there. Alright, I sanded the gouges down. Now the gouges are very deep, so I didn't want to sand down too much where I'm taking away too much of the material here. I just used some, I think it was 1000 grit sandpaper, wet dry sandpaper, and just took the sharp edges off of this groove. I think that's all I'm going to be able to do to it. I'm afraid to, like I said, take too much of that material away. I don't want to open up a big gaping hole on the side there where a lot can leak out. So I'm going to give this a shot. Hopefully it will be okay. Okay, I don't know if you can see this very well. I'm going to do my best here. Like I said, unfortunately, it's so much stuff spread around with taking this bike apart. I don't have a lot of room to record also, but what I do is I just took some fork oil, rubbed it around on the seal. I made sure I put the metal washer in there first, and then I just take a socket that's about the same size as the fork seal and just kind of tap it down. I rub some fork oil around it first and just kind of tap it down. You can see my fork moving on the vise because I just barely have it crimped in there, just enough to hold it in place. Now this socket that I have here is too big to go down in there, so I'm going to try to find another socket, just kind of softly bump it in there the rest of the way. This one is pretty close. Alright, so you just continue that until you get it in all the way. You'll see when you have it in there all the way, there's a little groove where you put the little snap spring back in it. Okay, you can see how it's back in. It has the little groove for the snap spring to go around the top of it, and that just kind of holds the seal in place, and then we'll add the oil to it and get it back on the bike. Okay, so filled the fork with 470 milliliters. Take and I rub my finger around on the inside of the seal just to get some of the lubrication on the seal with some fork oil. I just want to make sure this slides back up on the fork nice and smooth. So I also just loosened at the top of the fork. There is a screw up there for the air bleed. So you want to loosen that up and get the air where the air will come out. And you'll be very careful and just slide it on there real easily. So slide this up, get it back in place there. The bolts. And I got shock oil on my fingers and can't turn that bolt. Alright, so you get the gist of how you do it, and then you tighten those bolts up and to hold the front end on. So I'm going to pause this so I can clean my hands and get it back on. Alright guys, get the forks back on. I wanted to clean them and everything, but it's like 1,000,000 degrees out here today, very hot. I've got a new tire and everything for this bike, and I want to put that on, but right now I just have too much stuff broken down and all over the place in the garage. So I'm going to finish with this frame piece first, and then we'll come back. I just put the tire on for now just to have it on the bike and some stuff out of the way. We're gonna take it back off once we get this front frame piece on and everything back squared away there. Then we'll do the tires. I'm not ready to do the rear tire yet. I have a new rear tire also, but I want to get this frame back on and get some stuff cleaned up and picked up off the bench and off the lift, and then we'll start that project at a later date. But right now I want to get this back together and we'll start on that piece. So I'm probably going to end this particular video here. If you're watching the whole series, we're in the process of changing the front frame. It was damaged in an accident. I had leaking fork, so I changed the fork seals. So now I'm going to go back to the frame part. So this video may jump around a little bit. I'm probably going to have just the forks in one video and then the frame in a different video. So if some things don't make sense to you, I apologize. I thought I'd show you this little trick that I do to slide the bike on the lift. When I put it on the center stand, it rolls backwards. So I want to slide it up on the front part of the lift. Excuse all the mess on the lift. I got tools everywhere I need to clean up, and I'm going to do that here in a minute. But to slide it up on the lift, what I do is I'll take a strap and just put the strap around the center stand and then around the wheel. And then that way you can grab the front wheel and actually just slide the whole bike forward on the lift, and you don't have to worry about the stand falling down on you. That way, you know, you can get it centered back on the lift and actually, you know, get it to where the lift will be able to raise up, and you can kind of strap it down after that to hold it steady on the lift. I just want to raise it up a little bit, putting these side panels on. I have the lift, might as well use it to raise it up, make it a little easier to get these side panels on instead of being bent over the whole time. So just a little trick, throw in there. Maybe I'll show you how to do it. So just have the strap, sorry about the camera moving, just have the strap around it there, just slide it. Alright, I'm going to leave a little room there so when I go to take it off the center stand it can roll forward. Or I can just slide it back more by grabbing the back wheel and pulling it back. So that's how I do it anyhow.